Well, good afternoon, everyone. This is the Blog Post. No matter if you love it or hate it, the message will be sent. So, as we all know it, this is no surprise that as being Black people in this United States of white supremacy, whether you consider yourself foundational Black American, be one as I do, or you consider yourself something else. No matter what you consider yourself, if you have a high level of melanation, you are an enemy of the state, whether you like it or not. I would like to first start off with some information of the Black civil rights so-called bootlegs that met with President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Mammy Harris. Now, this meeting did not go off as though we will want it to go off. That was also this in their favor. But nonetheless, what we need to understand that these people who are in power or in the position of obtaining authority have once again sold us out to this government and mainly the Democrats. Now, we must understand the context of this, that I'm neither nor Democrat, nor I am Republic. I am B1. That means Black first. So before we get into these small clips that we're going to go over, why do I believe that we are enemies of the state? Is it police brutality? Is it implied immunity? Is it defund the police? There's a lot of topics that are going to be thrown around today, but I want you to keep your eye on the ball here. Because what we need to understand is that regardless if you voted or you did not vote, you are still an enemy of the state and you are still in the same position that you were before you voted. So if you did vote and you voted for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, the only thing you simply did was get one racist out of the office and replace it with another racist, whether you like it or not. One is covert, the other one is overt. So Donald Trump is your big mouth racist, and Joe Biden is a person who just hide his racism in the policies like the 1994 crime bill, as well as the 1986 anti-drug bill. And we also know the history of Kamala Harris. When she ran in California, didn't she run on an East Indian ticket, but now she's claiming to be Black? That's neither here nor there. Her father is from Jamaica, so that she does have African and melanated blood. And her mother is from India. So I'm not going to conjecture. I'm not going to dispute. I'm not going even to weary over the fact if she's Black or not. I think that we spend too much time arguing over the small things where the big things are right here in front of our faces. And first and foremost, the president that some of you guys elect said this in the meeting with the Black bootlegs, quote unquote, civil rights leaders that absolutely do nothing for you and I, but they do talk a good game.
And so there's some things that I'm going to be able to do by executive order. I'm not going to hesitate to do it. But what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to do what used to, Benita, you probably used to get angry with me during the debate. When you'd have some of the people you were supporting said, on day one, I'm going to executive order to do this. Not within the constitutional authority. I am not going to violate the Constitution. And so there's some things that I'm going to be able to do by executive order. I'm not going to hesitate to do it. But what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to do what used to, Benita, you probably used to get angry with me during the debates. When you'd have some of the people you were supporting said, on day one, I'm going to executive order to do this. Not within the constitutional authority. I am not going to violate the Constitution. Executive authority that my progressive friends talk about is way beyond the bounds. And as one of you said, maybe you, Reverend now, whether it's far left or far right, there is a Constitution. It's our only hope And the way to deal with it is where I have executive authority, I will use it to undo every single damn thing this guy has done by executive authority. But I'm not going to exercise executive authority where it's questioned, where I can come along and say, I can do away with assault weapons. There's no executive authority to do away with that. And no one's fought harder to get rid of assault weapons than me. But you can't do it by executive order. If you do that, next guy comes along and says, well, guess what? By executive order, I'm going to say everybody can own machine guns again.
Well, did you hear that? This is your president-elect Joe Biden telling the black bootlicks what he is and is not going to do. And I know that some of you would like to argue that, oh, he's not going to violate the Constitution. So let's put this into perspective. Did Donald Trump violate the executive order of rights given to him under the Constitution when he applied COVID-19 benefits and extended unemployment benefits? Did he violate constitutional executive order authority? No, he did not. So the part that's missing here is, what can you do for the Black community, Joe, under your executive authority? Now, this next clip, because I have quite a bit of information I want to get through, so we're going to go through this very quickly, but nonetheless, I just want to show you how he's speaking to them in such a manner that we've never seen Joe Biden speak before. Does it seem like he has dyslexia? Does it seem like he has some sort of mental condition, or he's out of his wits? No. He told them quite frankly what he's willing to do and what he's willing not to do. Now, this next clip has to do with defunding the police. Now, we understand that the term defunding the police, I think, was headed by the Black Lives Matter movement, also known as the LGBTQ community. But nonetheless, this was a ploy to decrease police budgets around the nation in order for them not to be responding like the military, because we understand that some of these police forces, whether it be their SWAT team or their sniper teams, they have military equipment and military vehicles that they don't need in urban cities, having them respond like some sort of military quick reaction force. Now, nonetheless, I want you to hear what Joe Biden is telling them. They're not having a discussion at this point. He is telling them what he is going to do and not going to do. But by no means is he's going to defund the police, quote unquote, or wipe away implied immunity. As a matter of fact, he's not going to do none of the above. He's going to increase the police budget and still give them immunity when they commit murders and crimes against Black people. We understand that this is a one-sided conversation because I'm Black first. So any other ethnic race that's listened to it, then you understand my perspective. We're the most targeted group because we are enemies of the state. It doesn't matter what sector, what industry that we operate in, we're always the enemy. Whether it be corporate America, we get fired for no just cause. We get let go because of our hair, the way that we speak, the way that we walk. We are discriminated upon in each facet of life. Our kids at school, us on the job, whether it be in the store, we get targeted everywhere we go. See, there's certain crimes that the rest of the population of the United States of white supremacy don't incur, like DWB, driving while Black, DWW, walking while Black. So we have all these issues in our Black community, and some of you would like to say, well, it's you guys' fault. It's because you guys do this and do that and do this. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to take a quick look in the mirror. And I want you to ask yourself, if you have a skin tone or high melanation, have you ever been wrongly accused of something and you was absolutely innocent? Or were you ever incarcerated or in jailed for a petty crime that you got an extenuating sentence that someone of a different race did not receive the same punishment. This is the United States of white supremacy. And what we need to understand is that this corporation operates different than any other country, because we need to understand the system that we live in.
One of the things I'd be concerned about, just as was pointed out to me that you wanted me to be concerned, Derek, I think it was you said it, about, dealing with Vilsack as in terms of agriculture. Well, first of all, you can learn more about Vilsack's record, but my point is this. I don't think we should make that a big issue going into before January 5th, when the election takes place down in Georgia. But I also don't think we should get too far ahead of ourselves on dealing with police reform in that, because they've already labeled us as being defund the police. Anything we put forward in terms of the organizational structure to change policing, which I promise you will occur, promise you. Just think to yourself and give me advice whether we should do that before January 5th, because that's how they beat the living hell out of us across the country, saying that we're talking about defunding the police. We're not. We're talking about holding them accountable. We're talking about giving them money to do the right things. We're talking about putting more psychologists and psychiatrists on the telephones when the 911 calls through. We're talking about spending money to enable them to do their jobs.
This is a laughable offense. He said, we're not talking about defunding the police. We're talking about holding them accountable. When in the West Hill have America in any state, in any city or county has ever held the police accountable? I would say out of the times that Black people have been mistreated, have been brutalized, have been targeted, have been killed, have been murdered, unarmed, the police was probably punished 0.1% of the time because of the immunity that they bear by simply having a badge. And once again, I want to point out some key things that Joe Biden said. He said, we are not going to defund the police. I'm going to rewind it just so you catch it, because he's going to increase the police budget. He's not going to wipe away implied immunity. He's going to keep it in place so they can continue to kill Black people. And what you people need to understand, some of you like, oh, the 1994 crime bill was such a long time ago. Was it? The three-strike law was such a long time ago. Was it? Why is the three-strike law still prevalent today? Or the 1986 anti-crime bill, anti-drug bill that targeted African-American communities? See, this is the problem. Time and time again, we continue as a people to vote Democrat or Republican, and they have no special interest. And the people you see on the screen, what I like to call the Black civil rights frauds, is that they're here just for a picture. They're here saying, this is what we did, but they absolutely didn't accomplish not one damn iota. They did not move the economic and decrease the budget between the Blacks and the whites. They have done none of this, ladies and gentlemen. This is the problem, that just because we have people representing us that look like us doesn't mean they're for us. They continue to pander to Black people for votes every 4 years. And these Black so-called civil rights leaders for the past month and a half have been begging and emailing and calling Joe Biden's administration to get this meeting. To see what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris was going to do for Black people in this country. And they sat here for an hour and a half and talked about absolutely nothing. See, a lot of you may be fooled and bamboozled behind the Lift Every Voice plan. Have you read that plan? Have you actually read it, or did you just read the damn title? First and foremost, the title within itself is pandering because it's the Lift Every Voice plan. He's letting us know this plan is for you. But I want you to go and read that plan and see code and switch words, people of color, and also minorities. So if you do your research, ladies and gentlemen, you should understand what people of color are. You should understand what minorities are. That's Native Americans. That's Hispanics. That's immigrants. That's East Indian. That's Asian. Everybody except Black people. Because at the end of the day, the wealth gap has increased over time in the past 20 years, not decreased, not even under the so-called first Black president, Barack Obama. So we need to be very cognizant and aware of what's going on. So let's back this up for you guys and let's hear what he actually is saying to these people.
Promise you. Just think to yourself and give me advice whether we should do that before January 5th, because that's how they beat the living hell out of us across the country, saying that we're talking about defunding the police. We're not. We're talking about holding them accountable. We're talking about giving them money to do the right things. We're talking about putting more psychologists and psychiatrists on the telephones when the 911 calls through. We're talking about spending money to enable them to do their jobs better, not more with more force, with less force and more understanding. But I just raise it with you to think about. How much do we push between now and January 5th? We need those 2 seats about police reform, but I guarantee you there will be a full-blown commission. I guarantee you it's a major, major, major element.
Now, did you hear that? It was talking about the increase of the budget versus decrease of the budget, and that the immunity will stay in place. Oh, we need more money so they can do their jobs a lot better. We need more money to give to the police to do their jobs a lot better, to kill Black people a lot better. Unarmed, that is. Now, here's a chart by the American Institute of Science showing the lifetime risk of being killed by the police per 100,000. Okay, this is in measurements, ladies and gentlemen. Do you see who's at the top of the list? And do you see who's at the bottom of the list? The bottom 2 versus the top 2. Not even the second largest population is at the top, but the Native Americans, who are also indigenous people to this land, as well as the indigenous people of this land of African descent, are the top 2. We are the ones that are being killed the most. We're the ones who've been marginalized the most. We're the ones who've been brutalized the most. We're the ones who the Homestead Act highly affected, the Highway Act highly affected. We are the groups. See, they figure out different ways to attack us on all fronts. See, this is the way that you win a war. And so far, ladies and gentlemen, foundational Black Americans, we are losing. Even though every now and again we may win a few battles that may say, oh, there's no racism in this country. Oh, we're doing pretty well. Strap up your bootstraps tight and work hard and save your money and you'll make it. Not if you're dead. Not if you're in prison. We need to understand that there is a racial genocide that's occurring in this country, and it's coming from the system of white supremacy, the global system of white oppression. Does that mean that every white person is a racist? No. But it also could mean that the majority of them actually assist in the system of oppression, but not simply verifying that they have some sort of white privilege. But this is the world that we live in today. Now, here's the mortality rate relative to whites. Are they even on the list? But where are we? Where are we? We are at the top once again, especially African American males, because we are the most targeted. There was a study done, and I forgot the panel of this particular video, but the information that was given out, it was basically saying, why are Black males targeted the most? It's because as a male, period, you can impose sexual authority over your mate and you can impregnate them. So what that basically is saying is that in slavery times or in modern times, the male himself can impregnate a female, whether she's in the mood or not, whether it's by force or by consent. So essentially, that we can essentially wipe away generations of people by sexually imposing on them male to female and not female to male. Because if a female tried to rape a male and the male does not have an erection or has some sort of ejaculation or masturbation, her eggs cannot be fertilized. But if a female is getting raped by a male, regardless if she's in the mood or not, she can still get pregnant. So some may believe that this is the conspiracy that white supremacy had to annihilate melanated people around the globe. Because first and foremost, we understand that we keep calling ourselves minorities, where in sense we are the majority and whites are the minority globally. Now we're talking about different population percentages. Yeah, they have a higher population percentage in the United States of white supremacy versus foundational Black Americans. And this is what we would need to understand. See, a lot of times the information is in the details, but we get lost in the details rather than look at the big picture. Just because you have a Black face in a white place does not mean that we have arrived. Does not mean that racism still doesn't exist. Doesn't mean that things and conditions are going to get better for Black people. Because if it was, don't you think your condition would have been better when Barack Obama was in the presidency for 8 years? This is not the case. Enemies of the state. Enemies of the state. Who are they and who are they? First and foremost, if you have melanated skin, you are an enemy of the state. If you have African descent, you are enemy of the state. It doesn't matter if you were born in Africa or you were born in the UK or born in America. And see, some of our African and Caribbean coons and sambos would like to believe that they're different than we are. Not in this country. You are a target just like the rest of us. So either you sell us out or not, your ass is going to be targeted just as well. But just to give some homage and honor to those who have fallen by the hands of the race soldiers, these are the true enemies of the state, ladies and gentlemen. And we need to pay them respect by all means necessary. I'm having issues here. Give me 1 second. These are the problems that we face each and every day as melanated people in this country. And if you don't understand and you can recognize this, then you may be a part of this system as well. Let's go over some of these names and some of the reasons why these beautiful Black people have been killed. Rayshard Brooks, the age of 27. What was he doing? He fell asleep in his car, blocking a drive-through lane at a fast food restaurant. And it basically talks about how this brother was talking to the police for 40 minutes. For 40 minutes. Brooks had too much to drink to drive and attempted to restrain him. A struggle ensued and Brooks fled. He was shot twice in the back, according to the autopsy. Well, according to the video as well. We understand that we saw that video, family. They said that one police officer was fired. He faces 11 charges, including felony murder. Brosnan faces a number of charges, including aggravated assault. This is one of the very few times that immunity did not help the police. But let's move on. Daniel Prude, age 41. He had run onto the street naked while experiencing a mental health episode. Ladies and gentlemen, a lot of our people experience mental health issues. A family member of mine had mental issues for a very, very long time, and that's the reason why she died. That was one of the main reasons why she died. But this brother was naked. Do you believe he buried a weapon being naked? I think not. I think not. Said Pruitt was initially complained when emergency services found him at 3 a.m. Though he became agitated, police placed a spit hood on his head. Officer Mark Van used his body weight to force Pruitt's head against the pavement as others restrained him. Pruitt said police were trying to kill him as he was restrained for over 3 minutes. An autopsy found he died of complication of asphyxia due to the restraint, as well as acute intoxication. This brother died in the hands of the police. Action taken, New York Attorney General James says Pruitt's death is being investigated. This is September 4th, 2020. They said a couple of police officers were suspended, probably with pay. The infamous and the famous George Floyd murder that we've all seen across the nation. Should I say more? And this was all behind supposedly an alleged to use a counterfeit $20 bill. A $20 bill, ladies and gentlemen. What is our life really worth? Our sister Breonna Taylor, we understand her situation. She was asleep at home. See, Breonna Taylor, her and her boyfriend was asleep while the police basically was exercising a no-knock warrant. They believe it was a break-in, Breonna telling her boyfriend, and they called 911, and he also fired his licensed firearm. Now, Breonna Taylor, who was unarmed, was shot 8 times. Officers in this particular case did not get fired or let go. They were simply reassigned. See, we don't fire white supremacists. We just reassign them to another mission. We reassign them to another police precinct. That's all we do. We don't fire them. Why would we fire our race soldiers? Atiana Jefferson, she was at home. A police officer shot and killed Jefferson through the window of her home in the presence of her 8-year-old nephew. The police were responding to a call from a neighbor who reported that Jefferson's front door had been left open. So a neighbor with no intentions of malpractice tried to report, making sure that the sister was okay. Come to find out, the race soldiers shot her through the window, did not announce themselves, did not knock on the door as proper police procedure. But the action taken again, Officer Aaron Dean reassigned. But then they say he was later indicted on murder charges. So small justice for a large crime. Aurora Rosa, she was at home. This is what these people were doing. They said her boyfriend, Victor Steffens, called 911 to ask police to escort her out of the house because of an altercation. The official report says that when the officers entered the home, they said Rosa was the officer holding a knife and refused to drop it. Officer Mark Rabb used his taser. Officer David Reed fired a single shot that killed her. So one police officer was aware enough to use his taser of non-lethal threat, because if I have a taser, if I have pepper spray, that is a far reach than her using a knife. But this is what we go through. But Reed did not face any charges over her death because, again, he feared for his life. The police department and city implemented reforms, including equipping officers with body cams. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm still seeing mistaken identity, where one brother was sitting down in the mall, and instead of the police approaching him and say, hey, you fit the description of this, unfortunately, I have to, put handcuffs on you. What the police officer did was very weird and strange. While the brother was sitting down with his family, the police officer snuck up behind him, bent down, and put handcuffs on the brother while he was seated. Come to find out, it was mistaken identity. And thank God this was being videotaped, and all the while his girlfriend was telling him to be calm because he was agitated. I don't believe that the brother handled it the correct way, but nonetheless, I can understand his frustration and the fury that he felt when once again being targeted by the police, being targeted by the race soldiers. Stephon Clark, standing in his grandmother's backyard. Have you noticed it doesn't matter where you are, that when race soldiers come to get you, they're coming to get you? You're not safe in your homes, ladies and gentlemen. I advise everyone, foundational Black Americans, to exercise your Second Amendment right and be a toting gun member and know how to fire it accurately and also deadly, because you may be feared for your life. What he was doing, standing in his grandmother's backyard. Officers said they believed that Clark was holding a gun as they shot him more than 20 times. Clark was only holding a mobile phone. It's amazing to me that someone is holding a phone that's usually a rectangular shape, has no contours, not even a shadow, okay? Not even any representation of a gun. He was on the phone. Action taken, the district attorney declined to file criminal charges. Clark's family reached a $2.4 million settlement with the city of Sacramento. So basically, you lose a son, you lose a nephew, you lose a family member, but the police officer gets reassigned to continue to kill and murder Black people. Botham Jean, 26. What was he doing? Seated on his sofa at home, eating ice cream. What occurred? Jean was shot by an off-duty police officer, Amber Geiger, after she entered his apartment, believing she said that it was hers and he was a dangerous intruder in his own home eating ice cream. Geiger was found guilty of murder and sentenced to 10 years for taking a life. When have you seen it? For mistaken identity in the brother's own apartment. The maximum sentence available was 99 years. Prosecutors had asked that she be sentenced to 28 years, but Jean's Coon Sambo brother hugged Geiger in court and told her he forgave her. Must be a Christian thing that I simply don't understand. You're not going to take my brother's life and I give you my forgiveness, and I'm sure not going to give you my forgiveness in court. It would be between me and my God and him alone. But I will not show you no passion, no affection, and no forgiveness. This is how they continue to put their boots on our necks, because as a whole, as a conglomerate, Black people are some of the nice people you'll ever meet, but they have demonized us over the years. They have made us out to be something we're not. This is one of the worst ones, in my opinion, other than George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, is Philando Castile. This brother was pulled over for a traffic stop. Police dash cam video of a traffic stop shows the police officer shooting Castile seconds after he informed him that he had a legal firearm. Castile's girlfriend, Diamond Reynolds, who was in the car along with her 4-year-old daughter, captured the aftermath on Facebook Live. Officer Geronimo Yanez was acquitted of second-degree manslaughter. The city agreed to a $3 million settlement with Castile's mother. See, what you guys don't understand, during this murder, when this brother was pulled over, this brother, I believe, was also a school teacher, and he had a legal licensed firearm in his vehicle. And what's funny about the story is they fired into this brother, and his girlfriend was in the seat right beside him. This video was televised. Alton Sterling selling CDs and DVDs. Do you ever thought that you was just selling some CDs and DVDs that you'll get killed by law enforcement? They said Sterling was shot by an officer, Blaine Solomon, one of the two officers who confronted him outside a shop. He was tasered and pinned out to the ground before being shot 6 times. Again, have you noticed that all of these Black people were unarmed? Even Philando Castile. See, he had a firearm in the car, but his hands were visible. What I mean by unarmed, he did not have a gun in his hand. And Solomon can be heard threatening to shoot Sterling in the head, and then after the shooting, repeatedly calling him a stupid motherfucker. After he shot him, Solomon was fired. The other officer was suspended for 3 days. No charges were filed. Simply because you lose your job is not justice. So if I go out and commit a murder and I work for some sort of organization, is the police just going to say, oh, you're fired, but you can go home? This is the implied immunity at its best. Michelle was another sister at home. 4 police officers arrived to serve a court-ordered transportation to an inpatient mental health facility. Possible, confused. Michelle had an exchange with the officers who decided to remove her security door. They said she charged toward them with a hammer. Sergeant Percy Dupree fired a single shot, and she died moments later. And Dupree, he wasn't fired. He wasn't let go. He wasn't incarcerated. He was demoted. You have a 50-year-old Black female charging you with a hammer. You couldn't pull a taser. You couldn't pull a flakjack or a nightstick or pepper spray. You couldn't simply use your hand-to-hand defensive combat skills that the police teach you. You pulled your gun. This would occur to Black people. They just pull their guns. They understand that the annihilation of the race has to occur on all sides. It has to occur in the medical arena with vaccines and also misdiagnosing us and giving us wrong medicines. But it also happened with our race soldiers who are the front line of the murders. Freddie Gray, we know about this from Baltimore, Maryland. In a police van, Gray had been arrested and placed in the back of a police van. He was found dead. 45 minutes later, his spinal cord nearly severed. His hands and feet had been shackled and without a seatbelt, so he could not protect himself as he was tossed around inside the vehicle. 6 officers were charged in connection with Gray's death. They were acquitted. And 3 had their cases dropped. The city reached a $6.4 million settlement with Gray's family. So it's okay to kill our young Black men and our young Black women as long as we give them a little bit of money. But our race soldiers have been acquitted. They did not get incarcerated. Our race soldiers simply just had the case dropped so they can go back to work and kill more Black people. This is not me. This is the proof that you see in front of your face. Tanisha Fonville, at home. Have you noticed that a lot of these are at home? Since Officer Anthony and Sean Sheffield answered a distress call to take Fonville to mental health facility. Again, we have a lot of mental health issues in the Black community. We must address these things. When you feel as though you're not in your right frame of mind, when you feel as though you're not in your wits, please seek help, because a lot of our Black brothers and sisters are dying at the hands of the police versus the mental illness that actually plagues them. According to Fonville's parent, Cornisha Banks, Fonville had a knife earlier and she was worried she might harm herself. Okay. The official account says that Fonville lunged at the officer with a knife. Banks said she did not see a knife in Fonville's hand when she was shot. Of course, the officer was not charged, but she did not have a knife in her hand at the time. It was an earlier account. Eric Garner, this brother, allegedly selling loose cigarettes. This brother lost his life off of selling loose cigarettes in front of a store in New York. Officer Daniel Patillo held Eric in a chokehold that he did not release in spite of Garner saying, "I can't breathe," 11 times. Ladies and gentlemen, when did George Floyd occur? 2020. When did this occur? 2014. This is the practice of the police when they encounter Black people. They automatically go to a chokehold. And after Garner says, "I can't breathe," 11 times. See, George Floyd was the one that made this term famous, but it was actually Eric Garner who actually started the "I Can't Breathe" campaign before this brother died. A grand jury declined to indict Patillo. He was placed on death duty after the incident. He was fired in 2019. The city reached a settlement with the Garner family for $5.9 million. Ladies and gentlemen, this was what, 6 years later, 5 years later, that this guy kept his job, his pension, his benefits. Akia Gurley, what was he doing? Walking down the stairs in the building where he lived. So again, a brother was at home. You see what I'm saying? Half of these cases, the people were what? At home. Walking down the streets in the building where he lived, police officer Peter Lane and his partner were conducting a vertical patrol in house project. Lane entered an unlit stairwell and fired his weapon. He didn't even see where he was shooting at. The bullet bounced off a wall and killed Gurley. Lane was fired. He was convicted of manslaughter and official misconduct in 2016. He was sentenced to 5 years probation, not in jail, not in prison, but probation and community service. He fired his weapon in an unlit stairwell where this brother, Gurley, was living and killed this brother. And the only thing he got was community service and probation. Not jail, not incarceration. But family, this is what they do. This is what they do. Gabriella, 2014, what was she doing? She was driving. When officers asked Gabriella to pull over, she ran into a patrol car. The police officer opened fire on the car. At least 2 officers were put on administrative leave because that's not proper police procedures. I digress. Tamir Rice, age of 12 years of age, playing with a toy gun in a park, 12 years of age. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I know some of you are going to refute this, like, well, why was she playing with a gun in the park? How many kids play with toy guns? Nerf guns, water guns, BB guns. 12 years of age. Within 2 seconds of arriving at the park, Officer Timothy Loman had fatally shot Rice. Police then had tackled his 14-year-old sister, Taja, to the ground, handcuffed her, and put her in the back of a police car. So they killed the 12-year-old male. Again, you see the annihilation of the black male race, and they tackled the 14-year-old sister. It took 4 minutes for officers to administer first aid to Rice. So by that time, he had already died. They said he died in the hospital the following day. But what if, you know how vital it is once you get shot, how long 4 minutes is to render aid? Loban and Officer Frank, who was with him, were not indicted. Gombrach was suspended for 10 days. The city of Cleveland agreed to pay Rice family $6 million to settle a civil lawsuit. Loban was later fired for discrepancies on his job application. Oh, so he shouldn't have been hired in the first place. But he didn't get incarcerated for falsifying statements on his police to be a law enforcement agent. Oh, no. He was just fired. Again, ladies and gentlemen, have you seen a trend here? How they just get fired or suspended, but none of them really get incarcerated. Michael Brown, age of 18. What was he doing? 2014 again. See, a lot of these things where people don't remember and understand that this happened under Obama. It happened under Obama. It says, walking with a friend, a white police officer confronted Brown and his friend. A scuffle ensued, and the officer, Darren Wilson, shot and killed Brown. Wilson said he acted in self-defense. No charges were brought. Wilson reassigned from the First Police Department. Reassigned, suspended, cases dropped, fired, transferred. Are you here in prison? Community service? Are you here in jail? No, you're not. They don't jail or incarcerate their race soldiers. They reassign them. They may, this one look really, really bad. So let's just fire him with his pension and let him go his own way. Tanisha Anderson, age 37. Her family called for help because Tanisha, who was bipolar, again, mental illness, was restless and trying to leave the house. Officer Scout Alrich and Brian Myers convinced Anderson to return to a mental health facility. They walked her to their vehicle, but what followed is disputed because nobody really knows. The officer said she fell to the ground, while her family said she was slammed to the ground. Investigators estimated that she was handcuffed on the ground for about 21 minutes before paramedics arrived. Alrich was suspended for 10 days without pay. Again, suspended. Myers was issued with a written warning. The city settled for $2.52 million for a wrongful death lawsuit. Not incarcerated and you get $2.52 million. Now put on death row and get $2.25 million, but suspended and a written warning. Don't do that again. Bad race soldier. You let the family see you kill her. Bad race soldier. Ladies and gentlemen, this is how they do us. This is what we endure time and time and time again. Now, if you don't understand these United States of white supremacy, then you don't understand anything else. We are enemies of the state, whether you have white friends, Asian friends, Hispanic friends. At the culmination event at the last days, when you are on the chopping block, what side do you believe they will take? You have to ask yourself a couple of questions in life. First and foremost, doesn't matter what you think you are, but who are you truly? What do you look like? Because I have some people, oh, I'm not black, I'm mixed, I'm this, I'm that. I laugh at this notion. No one's saying that you are not. But what are you considered? Whatever this system of oppression considers you is how you'll be tried. I've been known for a very long time that I'm an enemy of the state. So I try to conduct myself that I'm operating in enemy territory. I'm a gun-toting licensed member. And there are certain procedures when I get pulled over by the police. Does this mean that my life will not be taken? Not at all. But I will hope that it increases the chances and percentage of me living the rest of that day. This is the Black Post. Today, the message was delivered. Whether you like it or you hate it, the message was delivered. So the next time that you're out and about with your black friends, with your white friends, with your Hispanic friends, just know every person who look like you may not be like you. Not all skin folk are your kinfolk. And know sometimes, even though that people may seem to be your friend, can still be your enemy. I'm out.